Welcome to this week's Soul Sunday and Magical March, where we're going to talk about a lot of magical creatures this month. And because I'm the garden gnome over here, we are going to start with gnomes this week. So, and then later in this month, we're going to talk about dragons and all sorts of other mythical creatures and their magical properties. So we're going to start with gnomes today. And so I think everybody's pretty familiar with gnomes, the little garden gnomes that you see around. But I want to talk a little bit about what gnomes really are. Gnomes are associated with earth energy. So these are our earth spirits. They are symbols of good luck. There are a lot of different kinds of gnomes. I think most people are familiar with like the garden gnomes or the house gnomes. But there's a lot of different types of gnomes, and they all have something different that they're good at. We are more familiar with us as humans, and some are not. Obviously, the house gnomes are a bit more familiar with our habits as people compared to like the forest gnomes. So I think also you guys are probably pretty familiar with what a standard gnome looks like. They usually have a little pointy red hat and a pretty colorful little tunic. This guy's wearing yellow, but sometimes they're blue, green, red.
Big Papa energy.
Big Papa energy.
Grandpa energy.
Yep. And they have looked like this basically since about the 1800s. But if you dig in a little deeper back in history, you'll find that gnomes actually didn't always have this very friendly sort of Papa energy. They used to be known as these underground dwelling, scary little creatures that were just
prone to violence,
protecting the minerals underneath the earth, and just kind of staying to themselves in caves underground. The first accounts of gnomes describe them as very reluctant to interact with humans. And so that was because they sort of lived in these burrows underground. They were pretty isolated, and they just didn't really pay attention to much of anything like their hygiene or what we were up to. Their job was to take care of the earth, the minerals, and the animals in the forest. So they have an association with mines. They have an association with crystal energy and wealth. They are guardians, or they have been known as the guardians of like the golden treasure or the treasures that we find within the earth. And they have a great wisdom, not just about mines and mining the earth, but also about managing money in general. So it was believed that if you got financial advice from a gnome, that you would be prosperous and very, lucky, as you'd be a rich man. So today, the common garden gnomes, they have surfaced from the mines. And now they're just kind of watching over us, interacting with our pets, our livestock, looking over our gardens and our crops that we grow.
Still very much looking over the earth aspect of things. They prefer gardens with a large variety of items. They like to care for the animals that are living on the land and the property. They're still very much in touch with what is coming out of the ground, what is coming out of Mother Earth, but maybe a little less, isolated and underneath it, so to speak. Yeah. It's sort of like popped up to see what's happening on top, what the earth is producing on its surface.
Yeah, and they still are pretty elusive. So they are hard to see. They are hard to catch. They are hard to find. They are, they're fast. They have very good eyesight. They're very agile little critters, and they're pretty elusive. But while you probably should not be out there trying to catch a gnome, you can attract this energy into your space and into your life, and generally we want to do this by creating a space that feels welcoming to them,
is inviting for them.
Yeah, create a space that's inviting.
Yeah, I mean the interaction of magical beings is always on their terms, always voluntary, can never be forced. The idea is that we want to connect with what it is that they represent, what it is that they're doing out in nature. And by in doing that on purpose, by creating gardens and having animals and taking care of the animals on our property and feeding them and giving them bird baths, we're already connecting to gnome energy. We're already creating a space that is the kind of space that they would want to be, right? And in doing that, we invite them to come and to help us care for the plants, the animals that are on our property, right? It's not about like forcing them or, trying to see them as like working for us. This is a collaborative We want them to want to be around.
Yeah, and we should also be expressing gratitude when we do find the energy in our personal space, or it is an energy we come in contact with. So you can do things like leave little things around that they might like, right? Jewelry, gemstones, little crystals, money,
blueberries,
coins, berries,
like
flowers,
berries, flowers,
peonies,
herbs.
Lots of pretty flowers, peonies. And this is a great time to be connecting with Gnome Energy. We're literally rebirthing the planet right now. In the northern hemisphere, spring is coming. We're going to have lots of blossoms and buds. People will be out gardening. Now's a great time to invite this energy. The gnomes will come and help you. Make sure you have a beautiful flower garden. Make sure things are tended to. Make sure the baby animals are taken care of and watched over. And just in general, bringing prosperity, growth, and abundance to your life and your space. So if that's the energy that you're into, and I think we all are,
right,
not bad critters to work with.
No, I mean, they love the animals too. Like for a lot of us, I mean, particularly like cats and dogs, we have animals at home that aren't always, that we're not always home with. We have to go to work and we have to leave them alone. And this is a really, really great way to have somebody there interacting with them, looking after them, making sure they're not lonely, playing with them, and inviting these magical creatures who are very, very much in love with these types of animals and whose mission it is to care for them. We leave protectors, we leave friends and companions behind if we can encourage the gnomes to come and interact with our homes and our spaces and our properties. Then we are, it's communal. They're there to care for these spaces and these animals when we're out doing our human stuff.
Yeah, and speaking of playing with animals, you'll find gnomes to be very playful. They're very mischievous, so it always helps to have an extra little tidbit for them, something they like, as a bribe to kind of behave themselves, or you might end up with some shiny things missing. So anyway, guys, so that's our magical creatures that we're talking about today, gnomes. Leave in the comments there any questions you guys might have, any stories that you have about gnomes, and we will see you next Sunday. Thanks so much for tuning in.